here. So in a whole to part exercise or practice problem, we give our student something, any object in the base 10 model system, and we call it our whole. So in this first section, I'm going to say that a flat, which is our group of hundreds, right, 100 square, is going to be our whole. And then I'm going to choose what we're going to call a part. So in this case, I'm going to call this the part. This is the whole. This is the part. And I would ask my students, what fraction is this part of this whole? So the way that they would figure that out is they would compare them. They would say, well, this part would fit into the whole 10 times, right? We know that about a stick and a flat. There are 10 sticks to 1 flat. So this part represents 1/10 as a fraction. Now, we're not talking specifically about fractions, we're talking about decimals. So after I can help them to connect a whole to a part, to state that as a fraction, 1/10, then we move to saying how can we write that as a decimal, which in this case would be 0.1, because the first of our decimal values is the tenth. So I have 1/10, 0.1. Although I still want to teach them to call it 1/10, not 0.1. So that's a basic whole to part comparison. Now in the chapter itself, I had a series of examples, and I wanted to show all of them here because it's a little easier to see when you're using the actual blocks. So let's move on to the next example from the chapter, which used the thousands cube. So this is the equivalent of 10 of these flats, or the hundreds. 10 hundreds could fit into a thousands cube. So we're going to use the cube as our whole. So I'm going to put that down here and let us look at it. This is our whole. The part that I'm going to give for this example is 200 squares. So my whole and my part. So I would ask my students to decide what is the fractional comparison between this part and this whole. Well, one of these can fit in, we just said, 10 times. So this is 1/10 of the whole. I have 2 of them, so I have 1/10 and 1/10. That makes 2/10. So my part is 2/10 of the whole. 2 over 10 as a fraction, and then we would help them to make the transition. What is that as a decimal? Well, it would be 0.2, because I have 2 objects in the tenths column, or in the tenths position, the tenths digit. So again, this is the whole. This is the part. Let's keep it the same as far as the part, and let me change the whole so we can see what happens. So instead of this being our whole, how does it change if a flat is the whole? So again, let's look down here so we can see it up close. Whole, new whole, part. What's the value of the part relative to the whole? Well, if this is a whole, this is worth 1. So I have 1, 2. That makes this value 2.0, or 2 and 0/10, or just 2. We can think about it in any of these ways. Now that may seem really obvious, and you might ask, how's that a fraction or a decimal? Well, we do want them to realize that decimals and whole numbers are all kind of related in the same number system. So if this is our whole and this is our part, well, instead of having just 1, we have 2. So here, when this was the whole, this was worth 2/10. When this is the whole, this is worth 2.